It's all quiet in the underground bunker. Doors closed, locks bolted. But the Great One isn't just resting on his laurels. He's making sure your weekend is even better by giving you his best. This is the best of Mark Levin.
Well, the Democrats are at it again. Violent, riotous, arson, attacking our cops, federal, state, and local, refusing to comply with law, and then blaming Donald Trump of being authoritarian, a dictator. I expected from the Democrat Party, I wrote a book you might recall called The Democrat Party Hates America, but it's the media, unfreedom of the press, I wrote that one too, but it's the media that stoke the flames, that pour the fuel on the fire. Because the media now are in the business of calling the good guys bad and the bad guys good. Whether it's Hamas and Israel, whether it's ICE and the rioters, whether it's the cops and our college campuses, whether it's you and me and the criminals and the illegal aliens. Donald Trump is doing exactly what he should do. As for the use of the military, there are several statutes that allow a president to use the military. And they've been used before Donald Trump ever ran for president the first time. Dwight Eisenhower used the United States Army. He issued an order to round up over 1 million illegal aliens and remove them within 6 months. Ronald Reagan, who was governor of California, used the National Guard to put down the violence on college campuses in the 1960s. George H.W. Bush in 1992 not only brought out the National Guard, but used the Insurrection Act to put down the riots yet again in Los Angeles. Donald Trump so far has used the National Guard, and he's sending several hundred Marines to back up the Guard. The LAPD is understaffed by over 1,000 officers because of their budget. The chief of police says that they're overwhelmed. We have a governor of California who's a drama queen. He's dumb as a doorknob, probably the lowest IQ of any governor, and that's saying a lot. He always does the wrong thing when the right thing should be done, whether it's the fires that took place outside of L.A. and around L.A., whether it's illegal immigration. He has spent that state into bankruptcy. California was a great state, a vibrant state, a law-abiding state. But it was too Republican. Republicans never lost in California. So the Democrats decided to change it. How? Through illegal immigration. That's how. Through taxes and regulating and productive people out of the state. They destroyed the state in order so that they would have all this power. The power of a one-party state. You've got a mayor who is a radical, who's always been a radical. You have a governor who's basically a political bureaucrat. It's all he's ever known. And truly stupid. And he thinks he should be president. Thinks he should be president. Bankrupts the state. Destroys law and order. Opens his borders. I believe we just voted against that. And the media, this mostly peaceful bullcrap. And now they add to that, well, it's mostly peaceful except when Trump stepped in. Trump did exactly the right thing at exactly the right time, and he may need to do more, and he'll do more. And he won't be the first president to do more, and he more likely won't be the last. There's nothing that Trump has done that is dictatorial or authoritarian. It's an amazing thing. Donald Trump calls up the National Guard because the governor in his sanctuary state refused to do so. Donald Trump wanted the National Guard to protect the Capitol building on January 6th. The mayor said no. The speaker said she didn't like the optics. Then he's blamed for January 6th. It's funny how the media forget, isn't it? But they don't forget. They censure, they lie, they distract. We literally have illegal aliens, Islamists, and of course Marxists rioting in L.A. and elsewhere. Rioting. Carrying around the Mexican flag, and I also saw the Palestinian flag, for those who care. They come into our country. They steal their way into our country. They take our benefits. And here ICE was not doing a general roundup, which they're free to do. They were going after the most hardened criminals. The murderers, the rapists, the burglars, and others who've done other horrific things. But look, for the Democrat Party, those are future voters. They don't care. They claim to care about the cops. No, they don't. They don't care about them at all. And they never have. And once again, you're told, don't believe what you see and hear. This was peaceful until Donald Trump decided to step in. It wasn't peaceful. That's why Donald Trump did step in. And not only that, they're attacking federal law enforcement. It's not just a local law enforcement issue. They're attacking ICE agents. ICE agents, federal. And he's not going to wait for the radical left-wing kook mayor and the low IQ drama queen governor to do something, because effectively they did nothing. And he moved quickly, like he should have. Quickly, like he should have. Now, when you assault a federal officer, you've committed a federal offense. And when you commit a federal offense, you should be prosecuted by federal prosecutors. That way we can be sure that you'll do time, hopefully a lot of time. 18 U.S.C. Code Section 111. Whoever forcibly assaults, resists, opposes, impedes, intimidates, or interferes with any person designated in Section 1114 of this title, who are engaged in the performance of official duties, this includes Border Patrol, and, by the way, National Guardsmen, shall be fined and imprisoned for up to 1 year for simple assault and up to 8 years where such acts involve physical contact with the victim of that assault or the intent to commit another felony. And use of a deadly or dangerous or inflicts bodily injury shall be fined, deadly or dangerous weapon, or inflicts bodily injury shall be fined and imprisoned not over 20 years. A simple assault does not require physical contact between the perpetrator and the federal agent. This means someone can commit an assault without ever touching the officer. It makes it a federal crime to assault any federal officer, agent, or employee of the U.S. government or member of the uniformed services. This includes government employees on the job and may consist of former employees, as a matter of fact. Examples of federal agents include, not limited to, FBI agents, Border Patrol agents, U.S. Marshals, ATF agents, ICE agents. That's what we're talking about. IRS employees, postal workers, current or retired federal judges. Okay, now if you make actual physical conduct, you're on the hook for at least for a felony up to 8 years and $250,000 in fines for each assault. If it's a serious assault, you can do up to 20 years and $250,000 in fines for each offense. There's no question, then, that there's federal authority to prosecute. And there's no question there's federal authority because you're dealing with a federal agency, an ICE, a federal immigration enforcement agency. These are police officers, federal police officers, who are being attacked. So you don't have to sit around and wait for the radical left-wing commie mayor. You don't have to wait for the drama queen, do-nothing clown of a governor to act, to call in the National Guard, or, by the way, the regular military. Under the Insurrection Act, as George H.W. Bush did. But he did it when we're not even talking about attacks on federal law enforcement. Here we have federal law enforcement under attack. So this is a open and shut case, a black and white case. It's that simple. That's it. There's no question there's federal authority. None whatsoever. Let's see, I'm just looking further. So I wanted to lay down that predicate as we go on, to straighten out the liars in the media, the scum Democrat media liars.
Mark Levin.
Making your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
So I called the President of the United States earlier this morning, which I don't often do. He and I are very close friends. I know this upsets the isolationists and the fifth columnists and their media mouthpieces and propagandists. I said, Mr. President, have I lobbied you about Iran? He said, no. I said, Mr. President, when we met last week, did I lobby you about Iran? He said, no. I said, Mr. President, did I ask to meet with you or did you ask to meet with me last week? He said, I asked to meet with you. He said, why? I said, because we have a group of people who are pushing propaganda, who are pushing a narrative into Politico, into other places, that suggests the opposite. Well, Mark, why don't you ignore them? Ignore them because you and I both know it's not true. It's very important that you folks understand. I'm going to continue. I'm not going to get into what I discussed with a president who wants to meet with me. There were a number of subjects that came up. As far as Iran goes, the president knows exactly where I stand on Iran. And he told me he knows exactly where I stand on Iran. Because he watches my shows on Fox on Saturday and Sunday. The whole world knows where I stand on Iran. The fifth columnists, the isolationists, know where I stand on Iran. I suspect the Islamo-Nazis in Tehran know where I stand on Iran. So why is that a secret? What I am not doing, and what I would not do to Donald Trump, is lead a lobbying campaign of hawks, as it was put in Politico, war hawks. I'm not leading any lobbying campaign. I haven't organized any lobbying campaign, but it doesn't matter. So somebody and some group, a cabal, are putting out these leaks to entities like Politico. Politico is untrustworthy. They took $8 million in subscriptions last year, 2024, from the taxpayers through the government and so forth. But I can tell you they're liars. I can tell you that the main writer of this piece, Rachel Bade, is a liar. That Rachel Bade is a propagandist. That Rachel Bade is a scribe for the isolationists, for the Iranian special pleaders. And let me tell you something, America. These Iranian special pleaders like Chatsworth Qatarlson Jr. and others, they're making it, in my view, very difficult to get a deal with Iran. Because Iran, apparently, from what the president said yesterday, is more arrogant, more in your face than they've been before. Because they watch our media. They watch the Chatsworths. They watch the others. Some of the people in the White House who are undermining the president of the United States. They see it and they hear it. And so they think that is a majority position of the United States when it is a tiny minority position of these reprobates and malcontents and miscreants. Now, it's not a complicated issue. Under no circumstances should Iran get a nuclear weapon. That's the Trump position, the MAGA position, the Reaganite position, the Rhino position, the position of everybody who has two brain cells to rub together. The debate is over whether you can trust an Islamic terrorist regime that has already lied its way through multiple administrations, that has signed numerous documents with the UN, with Europe, with anybody they want. And yet here we are at the 11th hour. And then we're told it's not the 11th hour. There's some question about the intelligence, says Tulsi Gabbard. But Tulsi Gabbard is the only one. The IAEA says we're on the precipice. The Austrian intelligence says we're on the precipice. Our own head of, trying to find it, Central Command says they're on the precipice, that they can have nuclear material in 1 week if they sprint to it. He just testified to that today. The Israelis say they're on the precipice, and they have the most to lose if there is, in fact, a military campaign. So, but Politico says there's some kind of question about this. Now, I know who's leaking. There was a big article in the New York Times a couple of years ago about Chatsworth Osborne Jr. He's been in Washington his entire life. He's worked the system his entire life. He's got all kinds of media at the Washington Post, at Politico and everything. Rails against the left, but he uses the left and they use him. I don't have any of these contacts. I don't talk to any of these people. If I put him into a lie detector test right now and asked him one media outlet to the other, he'd flunk if he lied. So that's the difference. I tell you the truth. I'm not working through any media. I'm not undermining the president. I'm not lobbying the president. I give my opinion if I'm asked. And, of course, I'm paid to give my opinion here and on TV and on Blaze. It's that simple. My views are almost completely in line with the president's. Almost. I'm not changing his views. I'm not making his views. I don't treat him that way. Now, I know who the leakers are. Just a matter of time. In remarks at a Monday business roundtable, President Trump made clear that the Iranian proposals thus far were unacceptable. Quote, "They're asking for things you can't do," Trump said. "They don't want to give up what they have to give up. They seek enrichment. We can't have enrichment. We want just the opposite. And so far, they're not there." None of this appeared in the Politico piece. None of it. I didn't say this. I didn't urge the president to say it. He said it. He said it. All the leaking to Axios and the leaking to Politico and the leaking to... It's the isolationists who are doing it. It's them. They're doing it. They're trying to undermine the president. And what they're actually doing, America, is they're making his job 1,000 times more difficult for the reasons I said. The Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran watches them, listens to them, hears what they're saying, and they say, oh, wow, this influencer, he has no problem with it. This person in the administration, they have no problem with it. And so they are emboldened. They're emboldened. So last week, I'm not going to tell you everything that was discussed. I had a meeting with the president at his request. It's leaked to the media, and then they put a spin on it. Levin is lobbying Trump on the war. He asked my opinion. I gave my opinion. It's the same opinion I've given to you day in and day out. Same opinion I've given on Fox day in, day out. Same opinion I've given on Blaze day in and day out. And there's no surprise by anybody for anything. I'm not lobbying for anybody. I'm not lobbying for a group of people. And yet this is what these dishonest reprobates want you to believe. Why? Because they're desperate. They're the ones who have ties to Qatar. They're the ones who have ties to Putin. They're the ones who have ties to all these bizarre, evil regimes. They're the ones who are mouthpieces, the special pleaders for the enemy, not me. I was raised properly. I know who the good guys are and the bad guys are. I'm not a former Democrat who's now in the administration attacking in her own way the brave men who had to drop atomic bombs on Japan to end what could have been a forever war, or where we might have lost up to 1 million soldiers. This is sick. Sick, in my humble opinion. I'm not a hawk. I'm a realist. A realist. Foreign policy is about prudence. It's not about hawks and doves. It's not about ideology. This is what Rachel Bade is literally too stupid to understand. I've written about it in Liberty and Tyranny. I've explained it over and over on this program. She doesn't know me. She doesn't listen to this show. She doesn't watch Fox. No, she's planted. This information is planted to her by Chatsworth and the others, and she runs with it. She also works for ABC News. So she works for two media organizations that have serious questions of credibility. An influential group of GOP hawks has launched a behind-the-scenes lobbying offensive pressing President Donald Trump not only back off his administration's quest for a nuclear deal with Iran, but greenlight an attack on Tehran by Israel. When did I do that? A lobbying offensive. An influential group of GOP hawks. Who am I working with? The campaign is raising alarms among Trump and his allies. Among Trump and his allies? Did they even talk to the president? He would have laughed at them. Oh, and by the way, at the end of the call, he invited my wife and me to have dinner at the White House in the next month or two. And if I said, that's funny, because if I do that, it'll be more the lobbying campaign by the hawks on Iran. And he laughed. And I won't tell you what word he used. He said, but don't worry about that. I'm not worried about it. During a private lunch, writes Rachel Bade and Felicia Schwartz, with the president at the White House last Wednesday, conservative talk show host Mark Levin told Trump that Iran was days away from building a nuclear weapon. Have I said that here, Mr. Producer? Have I said it on TV, Mr. Producer? An argument Trump's own intelligence team has told the president is not accurate. Yet his military advisors apparently are telling them it is accurate. And so is his CIA. So who are these intelligence advisors? We know who. According to an intelligence official, I counted 5 anonymous sources in her article. Not one of them would go on the record. Not one of them had the courage to go on the record. Not a damn one. So here's Rachel Bade, a fraud, a liar, who goes with 5 anonymous sources, lies about me and my relationship with the president, and the whole story's about how the war hawks are lobbying the president, and we're not. Certainly I'm not. And then the isolationists, she doesn't call them isolationists. She doesn't call them any pejoratives, nothing. It's all one way, the 5 anonymous sources. And she goes on. On a separate front, MAGA loyalists have been warily eyeing Rupert Murdoch's papers, particularly the New York Post. See, this is the giveaway, Chatsworth, whatever. The hate for Fox. Levin won't take your crap. He doesn't like bullies. More than happy to engage with you. They're trying to push the president to make a decision that's not what he wants. A senior administration official told Politico. Off the record, of course. Now, that's one of 2 people, and they know I know who they are. This person, like the others in the story, was granted anonymity to speak freely. Wow. Isn't that amazing? And to spread their lies. That's why they spoke anonymously. So Rachel Bade, we tried to get her on this program to discuss her story. We asked her twice, didn't you, Mr. Producer? And she ignored you. She ignored you. She does commentary for ABC News. She's the Washington writer for Politico. But she ignored Mr. Producer. I wanted to have her on here. I wanted to challenge her. I wanted to challenge her on the anonymous sources. I wanted to challenge her on the lobbying. I wanted to challenge her on what happened in the meeting. But she's a coward like they all are. She's a fraud. Rachel Bade, B-A-D-E. Now you're on my radar screen.
Mark Levin.
You're listening to the best of Mark Levin.
The police aren't our enemy. The rioters are. The National Guard's not our enemy. The rioters are. The active duty military is not our enemy. The rioters are. Conservatives aren't our enemy. Iran is. Japan attacked us and many other countries, and we ended the war to ensure it wasn't forever war. And yet, Tulsi Gabbard is concerned about nuclear war, except apparently when it comes to Iran, as she's one of the most radical of the isolationists. I'd given her the benefit of the doubt, but I can't anymore, not with that video that she put out, basically blaming the greatest generation, Harry Truman, for destroying Imperial Japan, that regime. It's really grotesque. You can look all over social media. People are disgusted with this, but if that's the mindset going in, that's like one of the other clowns who basically said that Neville Chamberlain was a man of peace and Churchill was the warmonger. These are seriously ill ideologues. Seriously ill. And no matter how many stories they plant, or the personal attacks, or the truly stupid arguments they make, and the arguments that no, Iran's not building nukes, you know, they're a very pleasant society out there. I'm not going to step back from these people. They're fools. If we go to war with Iran, it's going to be the result of Chatsworth Qatarlson, the Quincy Institute with the Charles Koch heads, the other isolationists, apologists, appeasers, because they are giving the bloodthirsty, terrorist, assassinating regime in Tehran the impression that America is weak, that Americans don't mind if they get the bomb, that it's just conservatives, neocons, warmongers who object. Now, this view is supported by America's Islamists. What's that fat slob's name on that show? The Turkish one, the Turkeys. What is that show? Young Turks. What is that jerk's name? I don't even know. But others too. It is they who will get us into a war. Doesn't matter. I don't even know these people. Who the hell even follows them? No, I don't. I have no connections to Qatar. None. I have no connections to Qatar supporting individuals. None. I don't kiss Putin's ass. I mean, think about this, America. Something very strange is going on. Something very dangerous. Something very weird. It's not about warmongers and so forth. You either side with the United States or you side with Iran. Either you side with good or you side with evil. Either it's okay for this Islamo-Nazi regime to have a nuclear weapon that keeps threatening us and threatening to blow the state of Israel off the face of the earth as well as others. That's either okay or it's not. Moral clarity. That's what it's about. Moral clarity. As for the reports in Mediaite, in Politico, in the bestiality, and sort of the other entrails of phony media, that Iran is not developing a nuclear weapon, we shall see. We shall see who's right about that. I look at the evidence. That's what I do. I look at facts. I read the legitimate sources. I have no insider knowledge. Neither do they. It's public. It's available to anybody who is quasi-literate. The head of CENTCOM is a liar. Pete Hegseth testified today that Iran is seeking a nuclear weapon. Well, is he right or is Gabbard right? Just curious. It's obvious that the Trump administration, except for a few of these isolationist embeds, is very concerned about Iran creating a nuclear weapon. Not because I had lunch with the president. That doesn't change a thing. It's because it's happening right in front of your eyes. Right in front of your eyes. And the media outlets that are doing the bidding of the liars and the reprobates, I will hold them to account right here. I will remind America over and over again that rather than telling the truth and providing news, they chose to do otherwise. The American people need the facts, not ideologues, not propaganda. They need the facts from responsible people, not ideologues. Foreign policy is about prudence. That's what it's about. It's about prudence. You can throw whatever wrenches you want at me, shoot whatever spitballs you want, this little cabal. There's more to come, and I will push back even harder. It won't matter. I've spent my life defending this country, the Constitution, supporting conservative causes, constitutional causes. I haven't had 25 different philosophical views. That's a lot. I wasn't a neocon and then call other people neocons. That's bizarre. So here we are. If you're a veteran, if you're in the military, I urge you to take a look at Tulsi Gabbard's video. It's all over the internet. I urge you to take a look at it because she speaks for this cabal. I urge you on your own to take a look at the evidence that is everywhere on whether or not Iran is building a nuclear weapon. Take a look. That's not Mark's false information. Responsible media outlets are reporting this. People in the know are talking about this. Patriotic men and women in the military, in intelligence services, are banging the pots and pans. I'm reading to you what they say. I'm not making it up. You know, this reminds me of March 2017. When I came behind this microphone and I laid out exhibit after exhibit after exhibit of how they were trying to take down Donald Trump, how the FBI was leaking, how they used FISA against him, and we came under withering attack. But I was right. The media were reporting these things. I didn't bring up wiretaps first. The New York Times did, and then they changed their headlines. I didn't bring up FOIA first. One of the other news outlets did, and then I read it. And I put it all together for you, behind this microphone. And then for Pete Hegseth on Sunday's Fox and Friends. And then for Sean Hannity on Monday's Hannity. The media lied about that. The media were spreading propaganda, fed to them by the FBI, the Democrats, and other media. Same thing is happening right now. The sources I use for the information, I tell you, and we also provide it on my website. And it sits there, how long, Mr. Producer? 4 years? About 4 years for you to check on your own. We don't shoot from the hip. I don't leak either. Somebody in the White House, perhaps in the VP's office, leaked to Chatsworth Qatarlson. absolutely dishonorable. They don't know what I said or didn't say. The people in the meeting and the president do. There was no drumbeat for war against Iran. It was a sober discussion. But I don't come here and tell you I spoke to the president and here's what I discussed. That's dishonorable. But people who weren't there, who received leaks, perhaps from friends and relatives, they seem to think everything went a certain way, and they discussed it as if they were there. They weren't there. I've explained this over and over again. Why? Because they're desperate. Because they don't support America. Because they're okay if Iran gets a nuclear weapon. They're lying about the evidence. They're lying about their progress. And they're attacking anybody who dares to raise it. Whether they be Tom Cotton or Ted Cruz or other people, whether they be honorable men and women patriots, many of whom have fought for this country. They're thugs. So they attack. They leak. They plant stories. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Chatsworth Qatarlson said in another burp of incoherence, I'm old. My views are old. You know what, ladies and gentlemen? I'm actually not old. I'm actually pretty young, in my 60s. You know what's old? The Constitution. That's old. There's all kinds of people who are old, older than I. President of the United States. He's fantastic. Outstanding. The fact of the matter is, it's not about age, is it? And yet this is how they argue. This is how they conduct themselves. These people are morons. They're thugs. They're trying to prevent you from speaking out. I want to encourage you, those of you who love this country, those of you who are fearful of Iran getting a nuclear weapon and threatening the United States of America, those of you who are fearful of a full-out war, should that country get a nuclear weapon and threaten us with a nuclear weapon. I want to encourage you. Be strong. Speak out. Go on the internet. Provide your comments. Provide the links to the evidence. If something should happen, if some military steps are taken, we will defend our troops. We will defend our commander-in-chief. We will unite behind them to defeat the enemy. Not exploit it or use it as an opportunity to grift, to get hits, to self-aggrandize. That's not what we do. That's not what you do. Negotiating tactic or sign of action against Iran, U.S. evacuates some personnel from the Middle East. The U.S. moves to evacuate some State Department personnel and military families from the Middle East are seen by experts as a potential sign of a U.S. or Israeli strike against Iran's nuclear program, or at least a signal to Iran that the U.S. is prepared for such action. Now, is President Trump a warmonger? Is that how he thinks? Quite the contrary. He's absolutely not. But he's not a fool. He's not an ideologue. And if he believes, he himself, without any advisors, that something needs to be done, then something needs to be done. Nobody's dragging us into anything. Nobody is so influential that they can tell Donald Trump he must do this or that. We'll see how this plays out.
Mark Levin.
The Great One makes your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
My monologue, I think it was on Sunday, the days start to meld together, was about Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. And I did an explanation of that here on the radio program as well, about how these two men became fast friends, then how they turned against each other in very brutal ways, and then for 12 years they wouldn't speak to each other. And Adams reached out at the urging of Dr. Benjamin Rush, another delegate in the past to the Constitutional Convention, and he wrote a short note to Jefferson, and Jefferson happily embraced it. And I discussed this story, and the president watches my shows. Apparently Musk does too, I hope so, as millions of people do. And so we have this piece in USA Today, and this came out just about an hour ago. Elon Musk called Donald Trump before expressing regret for harsh attacks. And my suggestion at the end of the program, Mr. Producer, was that Elon Musk pick up the phone, call Donald Trump, and really make amends, because he started it. And no, I didn't tell Donald Trump about it. Elon Musk reached out and talked privately to President Donald Trump by phone before the billionaire entrepreneur and former White House advisor expressed regret publicly for his harsh personal attacks on the president. So here's another leak out of the White House, by the way, but Reuters confirmed the June 10 evening phone call, citing a White House source with knowledge of the matter, after the New York Times first reported the exchange. It marked the first time the Tesla and SpaceX CEO and Trump have spoken since their alliance shattered during an epic feud last week. At least it didn't last 12 years, right, Mr. Producer? Hours after talking to Trump, Musk apologized for inflammatory social media posts he directed at Trump when the two men went back and forth last week in their combative war words. Quote, I regret some of my posts about President Trump last week. They went too far. The White House would not confirm or deny Musk's call to Trump, nor should they, because this is a leak. And it goes on to regurgitate some of his posts because, you know, the media want the fights. They want the fights. They want the grift. They want the hits. That's what they want. That's all they have. They don't have news. They don't have news. And so I happen to think this is a good thing. I happen to think it's a good thing. Elon Musk has done a great deal for the country as an entrepreneur. He did a great deal for the campaign. He's done a great deal when it comes to government bloat. He's taken a lot of hits left and right. I don't know what happened, but it doesn't matter. He's taken the step to do what John Adams did, and he should do. And Donald Trump should not have apologized or called first because he didn't do anything. But I think his reaction has been good. And as I said on the program on Sunday, he's a very forgiving man. Just look around him. Look around him. People have said some horrific things about him. I don't mean just criticism or supported another candidate. I mean have said the worst of the worst. And he's appointed several of them into his administration. And one of them can't stop calling him. Right, Qatarlson? And they've said horrendous things about him. Horrendous. Again, it's one thing in a primary to support another candidate and so forth. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. Let's get down to some other business here. The rioters and their supporters. Now, before I get into a fulsome explanation of what's going on here, beyond some of the surface-level discussions, I want you to listen to this guy, Chuck Hagel. He was a Republican senator from Nebraska, a very strange man. He's the former Obama Secretary of Defense. He has spent years trashing Trump, years trashing Republicans. Very strange guy. And listen to his take. And, you know, here's the thing. Why would CBS Evening News go to Chuck Hagel? How do they even know where to find him? You talk about an old man. He's got to be in his 90s, I guess, late 80s. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, Qatarlson. Qatarlson, you could be in your 50s and have the mind of a, you know, of an imbecile. He's 78. I apologize. But here he is, and egged on by CBS Evening News, although they don't have to egg him on much. Hat-tip newsbusters, cut 3, go.
What would be your biggest concern then about having National Guard and Marines deployed in large American cities?
Loss of life, like we saw in 1970.
But 1970 at Kent State.
At Kent State, when the National Guard opened up on students and killed students, partly because they weren't trained. They panicked.
When they hear the president say, if there are protests, I'm going to send troops into other cities or to other places, how would officers likely be reacting when they hear that?
You know, stop a minute. This is so disgusting and disgraceful. It truly is disgusting and disgraceful. It sounds like this was all planned. Kent State, 1970. Kent State doesn't come immediately to mind to most people. It does to me just because I'm a nerd on this stuff. But nonetheless. And then they're asking him to project how would officers respond to this. Is this news, America? Is this news? No, it's not news. It's not even close to news. Go ahead.
Our top leadership will have, if this continues, is am I going to get to the point where I may have to refuse a direct order to send in or give troops authority to do whatever?
And I would think even contemplating defying an order from the commander-in-chief is a nightmare scenario for most officers.
Sure. Contemplating a scenario like that is a career-ending decision.
So they're talking about exactly nothing that's taking place, Mr. Producer. Zero. Nothing. Speculating. Always to the detriment of Donald Trump and the country. Just speculating. This is a nothing story. It's not news. It's a pseudo-event, as we call them. A pseudo-event. CBS News has substantial resources. Are they going to look into who's been funding this stuff? No. Are they going to look into who's been funding the riots, the Islamists, the Marxists, the Jew haters on our college campuses? No. Other organizations have done that, and I've brought that to you as well. Funny, isn't it? How the isolationists never talk about Qatar and the amount of money it pours into this country to destroy our country. Isn't it funny? Remember what Rush always said? Follow the money. And he couldn't stand, by the way, Chadworth, but follow the money. Follow his money. Follow the money of the illegal aliens. Follow the money of the Islamists. Follow it. Well, we know where it leads, don't we? Pretty much the same place, no, Mr. Producer? To the Middle East. Here's an illegal alien, L.A., Monday. Let's hear what he had to say. Hat tip Willie Nelson TV on X. Cut 1, go.
We don't agree with the term illegal. We're undocumented. We've been here for thousands of years before you guys showed up. Screw up everything. We're anti-capitalist. We think socialism does work, real socialism.
Is there a country we can look to kind of model the socialism idea?
The only model would be Soviet Union the first 4 years.
Now, those of you who've read American Marxism, you know exactly what's going on here. You see, the citizens of America, you're the interlopers. Started out with the white Europeans. You're the interlopers. You're called, you want to know what you're called? You're called Americanists. Americanists in the books, in the essays, written by the Marxist race baiters that people like this read. And if you speak out against it, like Charlie Kirk or me or others, oh, you must be a racist. No, we're not racists. You in the media, you're the racists. You're the propagandists. You're the ones who defend the Islamists and Hamas, the Marxists. That's you, not us. But you heard what the guy said. I've told you before, it's a revolution. These are revolutionaries, and the Democrat Party loves them because that's what fundamental transformation is all about. And here's an LA protester this week. Hat tip Nick Shirley on X. Cut 2, go.
This is our city, and this was Mexico. You can't kick us out of the land that was ours. Donald Trump! Fascism! Let our people free!
Ay, ay, ay. Sounds like the Free Palestine crowd, doesn't it, Mr. Producer? So these people claim to be the indigenous peoples. They're not the indigenous peoples. They're not the indigenous peoples. I can get into that one day, but it's not really my focus. So you see, you citizens of the United States, especially you white citizens of the United States, whose ancestry is European, but not just you, anybody else who's here, who's not from Mexico or this place or that place, you're the interlopers. You stole our land. Get out of our country. Sound familiar, Israel? I think it does. But that's what they're saying. So this isn't just about Donald Trump and his policies. These people believe they have an absolute right to be here. Period. That this is their land. Period. That you took it. Period. These are revolutionaries. Now, the media will mostly show you. Now, the two media sources I cite here, Willie Nelson TV on X, Nick Shirley on X, these are small independents, individuals. But the corporate media, I saw on MSLSD with Pasaki, they're going to all the sob stories where families, their father is taken overseas, sent back overseas, and this one and that one, and you hear the stories. They spend more time on that than they do on the criminals and what they're doing to American citizens. Let me remind everybody, immigration is about what the American citizen wants, not what the foreign alien wants or demands. Immigration is about what benefits the United States from the perspective of the American citizen. Our representatives are supposed to represent you and me. In the cities, the representatives represent foreigners, illegal aliens, and others. And they get voted in over and over again, because of the Marxist ideology, because of the Democrat identification, and people go in, they vote Democrat, and these representatives represent them, yes, but illegal aliens. And it's also their effort to change society. The New York Times gave it away a few months ago. We read from the New York Times what they said about changing the population. The Democrats are doing it. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly, and that's what they're doing. So nothing I've said is white supremacist. Nothing I've said is racist. It's the truth. It is reality. From all the little bastards over there at Mediaite and other places, the overwhelming majority of whom are white with European heritage. They must be racists.
Mark Levin.
We're giving you nothing but the best of Mark Levin.
Do you see these Democrats? This guy Padilla is a United States Senator in California. He barges into a press conference. How physical they get. Like at the Newark Detention Center, the ICE Detention Center, the Democrats barge their way in. They're physical. They're abusive. We're going to have a whole new generation of Democrats. I don't mean necessarily young, but necessarily violent. He could have contacted Noem and said he wanted to talk to her. He could have contacted Noem and said he wants to be at the press conference. If she says no, he can have his own press conference outside. She said she's tried to reach the governor, Governor No Brains. Emma said no nuts. You know, I don't like to say that, Mr. Producer. I'm talking about peanuts. What do you think I'm talking about? But it's incredible, America. You understand, the elected Democrats are violent like their constituents. They're lawless like their constituents. Then they march across the Capitol building. They look like a bunch of homeless people. They're marching across the Capitol building, and we're confronting the Republican leadership. Confronting the Republican leadership over what? Now they're threatening if they take the House, they're going to gut ICE. So this is a Marxist party, as I've told you multiple times, that represents Islamists and antisemites. Obviously, Stalinists represents violent people, criminals. That's why they're always trying to get felons to vote, get them registered and vote. They've given up on the American citizen. This is their constituency. So this guy, Senator Alex Padilla, he's trying to make, and he does, a drama moment, just like the governor there. I think they're all from Hollywood. They're all wannabe failures of actors and actresses. It's one crackpot after another. So I don't know how good this will be handled in audio. He was removed and he was handcuffed. He didn't even have his identification. They had no idea who he is. How dare you do this to a senator? And, if you do it to a senator, you can do anything else. This is the elitist. This is the ruling class. Let's give it a shot. Cut 18, go.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the Secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your heads off.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I don't want to hear them talk about January 6th ever again. Never again. Never again. Here he is at a press conference after crashing Noem's press conference today. Now, he could have done this before. Cut 19, go.
I'm here in Los Angeles today, and I was here in the federal building, in the conference room, awaiting a scheduled briefing from federal officials as part of
That's not what he did. You could see the video, right, Mr. Producer? He wasn't sitting in the audience or anything of the sort. He was trying to break into the news conference. It had begun, and the door opens, and he walks in like he's walking to the podium. That's what I saw, Rich. Isn't that what you saw? He ran towards her. He ran towards her. And, of course, her security stopped him. I mean, these people are horrendous. And what the Republicans should do in the Senate is take action against this man. They should take action because, the Palestinian senator, as the president rightly calls him, Schmuck Schumer, he goes to the floor of the Senate and he's indignant. He's indignant about what? It's just like the Democrats and the mayor of Newark. They're indignant. They're the ones who crashed illegally, trespassed, forced their way in to the detention center, the ICE detention center. By the way, we have some great audio clips, don't we, Rich? Great clips. Sanctuary policies. This Elise Stefanik is a superstar. Didn't she make mincemeat of the governor of New York, Mr. Producer, Hochul? We have that here, don't we? Some of it, anyway. Unbelievable. Rips her to shreds. But one thing at a time here. One thing at a time. So the problem here is that the Democrats reflect their violent base, and the violent base reflects the Democrats. And the violent base represents the judges, too. I would ask the judges in Washington, D.C., are you okay with this judge in New Jersey who says Mahmoud Khalil can't be deported based on the Secretary of State's determination? You okay with that? Even though he was involved in multiple times as a leader of what turned out to be very violent activities at Columbia. And, of course, Reuters has said that he was a student. He wasn't a student any longer. Those are the doggies barking. I love it when they bark. The problem is when they don't bark. The problem is when they don't bark. Then you get a problem. This was just too good, folks. So we're going to listen in on some of this because most of you are working during the day. Most of those who aren't listening to this program. But I want you to hear some of this. I want you to hear Elise Stefanik at a hearing on sanctuary states. Sanctuary states. And she lets into Kathy Hochul, the current governor, who she hopes to run against, and I hope she does, because she would be a fantastic governor. But this is Stefanik. Cut 10, go.
Governor Hochul, on your first day in office, you signed Executive Order 1. Is that correct?
I believe it is.
And you extended this executive order not once, not twice, but 3 times, most recently January 16th of this year. Is that correct?
If that's what your facts show, I signed countless executive orders.
I would assume you'd know it's Executive Order 1. And this is a continuation of your predecessor's sanctuary state policies, correct? Is included in that.
I want to be sure we are defining sanctuary state properly.
I'll define it for you. It is the policy of the state that state officers or employees shall not disclose information to federal immigration authorities for the purpose of federal civil immigration enforcement. It goes on to say law enforcement officers may not use resources, equipment, or personnel for the purpose of detecting and apprehending any individual suspected or wanted for violating a civil immigration office. Law enforcement officers have no authority in the state of New York to take any policy action solely because the person is an undocumented alien. That's a quote in your executive orders that you extended. Now, do you know who Sakir Akan is?
I want to get back to the first part.
No, I'm asking a question. Do you know who Sakir Akan is?
I want to make sure you understand that this simply says that we will cooperate with ICE.
No, it does not say that. I read what it says, and let me talk to you about the results. Do you know who Sakir Akan is? You should, as the governor of New York State. Do you know?
Refresh my recollection.
He was an illegal migrant in New York. And do you know what crime he committed in addition to being here illegally?
No, I do not.
You do not. This was widely reported. He found a 15-year-old girl, threatened her with a metal pole, told her to get into the back seat of his car. He took her clothes off, and he violently raped her in Albany, New York. Do you know who Sebastian Zapita Khalil is?
I'm sure you'll tell me there's many cases, whether they're
These are high-profile cases. Yes. New Yorkers know about them, and you don't. So let's talk about Sebastian Zapita Khalil. Do you know who that is?
I don't have the specific details at my disposal, no.
Well, this is an illegal migrant in New York because of your sanctuary state policies. Do you know what crime he committed?
I'm not familiar at this moment.
I bet you're going to be familiar when I remind you. He found a sleeping woman on the subway, lit her on fire, and burned her alive. This is in Kathy Hochul's New York. And as I'm sure you are aware, and I'll remind you, that ICE issued an order to detain this violent criminal, but that was rejected by New York officials due to sanctuary state laws. Now, do you know who Raymond Rojas Basilio is?
I just want to say this. These crimes are horrific.
Because of your sanctuary state policies.
In all of these cases, we would work with ICE to remove them.
You did not in this case. They are walking on the streets because of your policies and your executive order that you signed 3 times. Now, Raymond Rojas Basilio, do you know who that is?
I'm telling you this. I will explain to you the policies of New York. We cooperate with. I know you're just trying to.
You do not. Specifically, ICE was told not to detain this individual, and he burned a woman alive on the New York subways in Kathy Hochul's New York. So I will keep on going. What about Raymond Rojas Basilio? Do you know who that is?
I'm going to tell you our overall policy, which will address all this.
I'll tell you who that is. He is an illegal who molested an 11-year-old in our state because, again, of your sanctuary state policies. This illegal was shielded from federal immigration enforcement and able to commit this heinous crime. And what about Wilson Castillo-Diaz? Do you know who that is?
I'm telling you this. We do cooperate fully with ICE in criminal prosecution. Our sanctuary
You're not advocating for these victims.
Only deal
this is a 5-year-old who was raped on Long Island in Nassau County. You are not advocating on behalf of these victims. You are shielding illegals. Even in your opening statement, you prioritize putting illegals first.
That is not
Rapes
true.
of young girls, beatings of NYPD cops by illegals who are here under Kathy Hochul's failed policies, burning New Yorkers alive. This is Kathy Hochul's New York. It's one of the many reasons why you're hemorrhaging support from hardworking New York
These are
families.
horrific
All right,
crimes.
that's she's fantastic, and Hochul is a buffoon. And she was not going to allow her to escape. There's lots more when we return. We have Byron Donalds, we have Nick Langworthy, we have Jim Jordan. They just eviscerated these governors. We'll be right back. Oh, excuse me, I've got 5 minutes. I forgot, I broke early. Sorry, folks, I'm a quasi-professional. Let's take a listen to Jim Jordan, to Kathy Hochul, again today at the Sanctuary States hearing. Cut 12, go.
Governor Hochul Third paragraph, second sentence in your written testimony, you said New York State cooperates with U.S. Immigration Customs Enforcement in criminal cases. Governor, who's Jesus Romero Hernandez?
Thank you. I want to reaffirm that we do cooperate in cases where...
That wasn't the question. I just read your statement. I can read your statement. Who is Jesus Romero Hernandez?
I don't have the details on every single person in the state of 20 million people.
I understand, but this guy's a citizen of Mexico, deported 7 times, came to your state, assaulted one of your residents with a machete, choked a police officer, then when he was in custody, assaulted a corrections officer. ICE finds out this guy is in your state's custody, and they send you a detainer. You're familiar with a detainer, right?
Yes, I am.
Notice of action, immigration detainer to Tompkins County Jail from Syracuse Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. Section 1, they check a couple boxes. The first one they check is a final order of removal against the alien has taken place. That means a court has said this guy needs to go. This machete-wielding, cop-choking, corrections officer assaulting guy needs to go. Then they also check another box and they say biometric confirmation of who this individual is, this alien's identity. So they got the right guy, and a court has said he needs to go. Any idea what Tompkins County Jail decided to do with that detainer order?
I will tell you this: the state of
it's a specific question.
No,
what did Tompkins County do?
The descriptions you have put forth are absolutely chilling and disturbing and reprehensible to all of us. My job is to protect the people of New York.
The question. What did Tompkins County do?
What I have responsibility for,
I will tell you, since you're not going to answer. We cannot and will not hold Mr. Hernandez.
Yeah.
We can't keep the machete guy who had choked a police officer and assaulted a corrections officer. We can't keep him. In fact, we have the back and forth from Tompkins County and ICE on January 28th of this year, 8:56 p.m., Tompkins County tells ICE, we're not going to hold this guy. 7 minutes later, ICE responds back, we will be there to take custody this evening. 24 minutes later, Thompson County reiterates, we're not going to have him. We're not going to turn him over. 10:45. ICE arrives at the jail. 1 hour and 18 minutes later, and guess what? Mr. Hernandez is not there. They couldn't wait 1 hour and 18 minutes for a guy who assaulted one of your residents with a machete, choked a police officer, and then when in custody, assaulted corrections officers. That is sanctuary policy in a nutshell. And that is what your state supports, and so do these other governors. That is what is so wrong, why the American people hate this concept.
You're conflating what the state of New York does is I control state police and prisons. We have turned over 1,300 people.
So you disagree with it?
We turn over 1,300 people. Did the sheriff make the wrong call? Those are local policies that we would not have done in the state of New York. State of New York, that is a local decision. So you're saying the sheriff's wrong? I would say this, if it happened in a state prison, we have already turned over 1,300 people.
Sheriff in Tompkins County is Democrat or Republican, Governor?
There have been times, excuse me.
The sheriff in Thompson County a Democrat or Republican?
Excuse me. There have been times.
I ask the questions, you give the answer. I'm asking, is he a Democrat or Republican?
For a second,
you know?
I'm asking for this moment to explain that I'm sometimes waiting for ICE to come pick up people. Is he a Democrat or Republican, and do you agree with the actions he took? Do you agree with the actions he took? How about that question? They are in conflict with what the state of New York would do.
Well, maybe they're scared. By the way, he is a Democrat sheriff. Maybe the county guys are a little scared because you said this. I'm quoting from, it looks like the New York Times. We all know you can trust them. This is last month, May 25th. You said we have some counties that are renegade counties and work with ICE. Maybe they're nervous of being called a renegade county.
Yeah, they have her pinned to the wall. She's a fraud.